way it was too. This morning, I want to speak on, is the grass greener on the other side? Is the grass greener on the other side? As I look at this, it's going to be pulling a message from Genesis chapter 13. But before we go to that, I'd like to introduce what's going on. It's a story about Abram, which became Abraham, and Lot, his nephew. And so when they came from far land and they settled in Canaan, and of course they were nomads, they moved around while they went. But as they moved around, they became very prosperous. And God blessed them tremendously with lots of herds and, of course, silver and gold. And there was a time where they just were just blessed. And everything was going good, so good that brings us to our story today, where they were both, where a situation came up because they were so blessed. Do you believe that you can be so blessed sometimes that it causes problems? Well, this was the case with Abram and Lot. First of all, I want to tell you the little introduction to what happened to Lot. Lot, one day they had to separate. Lot went to the city of Sodom to live with his family, and of course his herds, his servants, and everything like that. And when that was years after that, the Lord came to Abram and Sarah and visited them. While they were visiting them, of course, the Lord again told him, reassured Abram that he was going to have a child, that his descendants would be like the stars of heaven, and that the whole earth would be blessed through his family. And so before they left, though, or as they were leaving, these three gentlemen, and of course two of them turned out to be angels, and of course one of them was Abraham addressed him as Lord. And so as they got up and told Abram that it was good to be with them, and so they were about to go on their way, when Abram, as they began to walk, Abram went with them. And as they walked, as he escorted them down the road as they walked, they came to a point where the Lord looked at Abram and said, Abram, why should I hold back this news from you? And so the Lord began to tell Abram that he was going to send his two angel friends there down to Sodom and Gomorrah and the city of the plains. And the people had become so wicked that he was going to destroy them with fire and brimstone. Well, Abram knew that his nephew Lot lived down there in Sodom. And so he began to plead not only for Lot, but anybody else that was righteous before God. That means that they had a relationship with God. And so Abram began to plead with the Lord, said, Lord, if I can just interject something here, and because knowing that you're a just God and everything, what if you go down there and you find 50 righteous people among them? And I know in my eyes and thinking that Abraham knew right then by just saying 50 people, if there's 50 people there that were righteous before God, that tells me that Abram knew that there was a lot more people that was what? Unrighteous before God. That they did not have a relationship with God. They did not serve God with all their heart, with all their mind, with all their strength, with all their soul. There was some lacking there in these people's life. Abraham must have knew that, because if he didn't know that, he would have started out probably with a bigger number. Lord, if there was 1,000 people down there in those cities. But he started out with just 50. 50 people. And the Lord told him, said, okay, Abram, if there's 50 righteous in Sodom and Gomorrah and those other cities of the plain, I will not destroy them. And Abraham got to thinking about that thing, and he must have got to thinking, well, there might not be that many. So Abram began to ask the Lord again, said, Lord, what if there's 45 righteous? What if there's 45? And guess what? The Lord said, okay, Abram, if there's 45, I will not destroy it. And then Abram come again and said, Lord, what if there's just 40 righteous? Will you still destroy or will you save them? And the Lord said, I will save them if there's 40 righteous in those cities. And then lo and behold, wouldn't you think, Abraham began to press it, I thought, as we read the scriptures. And he asked again, but this time he didn't just take 5 off, he took 10 off. And said, Lord, if there's 30 righteous in those cities, would you spare it? Would you not destroy them? And the Lord told Abram, said, all right, Abram, I will not destroy it. And then Abram, again, said, Lord, if there's 20, if you find 20 righteous people among them, would you spare them? And behold, the Lord said yes. And then Abram tried the Lord one more time. And he said, Lord, if you find 10 righteous among Sodom, Gomorrah, and the other cities of the plain, would you spare them? Would you not destroy it? And the Lord said, if I find 10, Abram, 10 righteous people that call on my name, that worship me, I will not destroy those cities. And of course the Lord went on his way, and the angels came to Sodom and Gomorrah. As soon as the angels came to Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot was at the gate and met them. And he took these 2 angels, which was 2 men in the form of men, he took them to his house, and he was going to feed them and entertain them in a respectful way. But the men of the city of Sodom, they came to Lot's house, and they were about to break it in, wanting to get to those men. And they wanted to have their way with them. It was despicable. And Lot tried to plead with the men of Sodom, said, don't do this. Don't do this. He said, I'll even give you my 2 daughters, but don't mess with these men. Evidently, Lot knew these men were special. He knew these men were from God. Evidently. And so the men of Sodom and Gomorrah, they would not stop. And so the angels did something drastic. As the men were trying to come into the house to him, they blinded all of them where they could not see. And he told Lot, told his wife, family, said, look, grab everybody you can that's righteous in the city or that you want to take with you, but you need to get out, because the Lord is about to destroy the city of the plains. Sodom and Gomorrah, they're going to destroy this place. And so Lot and his family began to scramble. Lot went to see his daughter's husbands and tell them they thought he was joking. They didn't take him serious. That the Lord they didn't believe, and so they wouldn't come. And then Lot and his daughters was messing around and taking their time, and the angels finally took them by the arm and said, you got to go. This is happening. This is real. And so they pushed them out of the city, and they began to go. And as they were going, the angels of the Lord told Lot and his family, his wife and his 2 children, said, do not, as you go, do not look back at what is going on or what's going to happen. And so they took off. And as they took off, I don't know what it sounded like or what it looked like. But there was probably lightning and thunder, and there was fire falling from the sky and brimstone, and as that city was being destroyed. And then Lot with his wife and 2 children, and what happened was his wife was a little bit too curious, and she looked back. And of course the story goes that she immediately turned into a pillar of salt. So here we have Lot with only the clothes on his back, his 2 daughters escaping this tragedy of Sodom and Gomorrah. How did Lot get to the point in his life where all he had, and he was blessed, folks. He had herds, it says. He had servants. He had money. He was blessed. But now he was walking toward a mountain with his 2 daughters with nothing left in his life except their lives. How did that happen? We back up And we find in Genesis chapter 13 what went on. It said that then Abram, this is when they were together. This was some years later. And Abram and Lot was together, and it said they had just come out of Egypt and everything, and he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him to the south. Abram was very rich in livestock and silver and gold, and he went on his journey from the south as far as Bethel, to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, to the place of the altar which he had made there first. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord. And Lot also, who went with Abram, had flocks, herds, and tents. Now the land was not able to support them. In other words, they had become so rich and prosperous that their herds, continued to grow, their servants continued to grow, and so they gotten too big, what you might say, for one another. The land couldn't support them, all the herds that they had. And so, in another thing that happened, it says, for their possessions were very great, so that they could not dwell together. And there was a strife between the herdsmen of Abram's livestock and the herdsmen of Lot's livestock. And it says that, so Abram said to Lot, please let there be no strife between you and me, and between my herdsmen and your herdsmen, for we are brethren. Is not the whole land before you? Please separate from me. If you take the left, then I'll take the right. If you go to the right, I'll take the left. And Lot lifted his eyes and saw all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere. That was before it was destroyed. It was like the garden of the Lord, and like the land of Egypt. And then Lot chose for himself all the plain of Jordan. And Lot journeyed east, and they separated from each other. And Abraham dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain. And he pitched his tent as far as Sodom. But the men, in verse 13 it says, but the men of Sodom were exceedingly wicked and sinful against the Lord. We have a problem that happened with Abram and Lot. They had gotten so big that herdsmen, they couldn't get along because they probably were fighting for pasture and water and everything. And so Abram and Lot, they saw this problem, and of course Abraham did. And so there was not enough grass to support them, probably not enough water, like I said. And, sometimes in our life, sometimes bigger is not always better. Sometimes more causes more problems than it solves sometimes. And, of course, sometimes it causes more work, more responsibility, and more to take care of. It caused Abram and Lot to come to a point in their life where they realized there was no way they were going to be able to stay together and support both households. And so it brought them to a time where a hard decision had to be made. Sometimes a hard decision and accepting change is hard, but it was necessary. Their relationship between Abram, his uncle, and Lot, that would never be the same from this point on. No more family togethers. No more family gatherings together. They begin two separate places. No more family meals. No more picnics. No more getting together to celebrate birthdays, anniversaries, babies being born. No more meetings to share the little day-by-day things in their life. Like, look, Lot, look what Ben gave me today. Sorry about that, Ben. But look what he gave me today. He gave me a new sheep shearing knife. Now, is that thing sharp or not? And then Lot said, that's not nothing. Look what my wife made me. She made me a new robe. Man, and this thing look good. Man, when I walk across town, people are going to see me. My wife looked out for me. That's the neatest thing. But those little family conversations like that wouldn't happen. Or they wouldn't be able to share those day-to-day concerns and pains and sorrows that come up. Can you imagine Lot saying, Uncle A! Uncle A! That stands for Abram, all right? Made that up myself. Uncle A! I'm having a terrible pain down my back today, all the way down my leg. Do you know anything that could cure that sciatic problem I have? It's about to kill me. Just sharing regular things in life. What they were having to do, separate, would stop all that. How far? The next question that I see in this text is, how far are you willing to go to keep the peace? What? In your family, in your relationships, in the neighborhood? What are you willing to do to keep up a good relationship with your family, friends, and neighbors? Abram, get this. Abram's a good man. I have to work on this myself, folks. But Abram's a good man. He's a good example to everyone. Abram let Lot choose which way he wanted to go, which land he wanted. Abram appears to value Lot, that relationship with his nephew, more than he did possessions. He refused to let possessions cost him a relationship with his nephew. People that are close to us should matter what? More than what we have or some circumstances in our life. We may get what we want sometimes, but at what cost? Maybe in the process, I've seen it before, it splits people. I've seen it time and time again at funerals, working with families. I had one funeral that I did, and the family was not getting along. They were squabbling over the land and houses and inheritance and all that. And family warned, said, "Preacher, I don't know what's going to happen at our funeral today." He said, "There's no telling. There might be some violence. There might be some fighting. We sure would appreciate you, Pastor, trying to keep the peace." When they told me that, I went to both sides of the families and had a talk with them and said, "Look, when y'all come to church this day, this is a peace treaty. This is one of those things, we're going to have a little peace treaty today. And no matter what you're feeling toward everybody, this is to honor the one that both of you loved. So let's keep that out of this service and out of this church today. And then when you get through and you go your separate ways, then y'all can go at it. I'll even count it down. 1, 2, 3, get it. If that's the way you want to treat one another. But just remember this. You only get one life. You only get one chance. You only get one opportunity. Make it count. Thomas Watson, founder of IBM, was having a meeting in his corporation, a successful corporation, but the profits had gone down, the company was losing ground, and they had a problem. So he went into this meeting, and all of the associates around this great big table, they had come up and put it on paper what all the problems were, and there was a stack of papers, they say, on that desk that they said was the problems. Mr. Watson listened to them a while, go back and forth and trying to solve their problems and everything, saying, "This is it, this is it, this is it." And then Mr. Watson all of a sudden stood up from his desk, from his chair, went over to those papers and knocked every one of them on the floor. He said, "You know what the problem with this company is? We need to take care of our customers. We need to treat them right. And he said, if you do that, these other problems will be solved." It may not seem right, talking about Abraham saying, "Lot, you take what you want and I'll just take what's left over." Abraham should have gotten to choose first, right? He was the uncle. He raised Lot. Abraham was the eldest. He was his brother. Lot was his brother's son. And if it hadn't been for Abram, no telling what had happened to Lot. But he took him in, cared for him. But Abram was a good man. His main concern was not about choosing the best for himself. It was about keeping what? Peaceful and loving relationship with his nephew. Abram told Lot he didn't want any quarrels between him. He didn't want any quarrels between their herdsmen, their families. He said he loved them, so he would take the land that Lot didn't take. And so some would say that Abraham was crazy that day. But Abraham knew God had his back. You know what that means when somebody's got your back? That means you don't have to look around and worry about who's going to clunk you on the head. It means somebody's going to take care of you and be looking out for you. Abram knew that God was there, that God had worked in his life, that God was working in his life, and that God would always work in his life. And no matter where he ended up, God would provide. Folks, that's faith. But Abram trusted God. And so he let Lot choose. Lot chose the best land and the most watered area there was, Sodom and Gomorrah, the cities of the plains. And he went there because it was lush, it was fertile. That Jordan Valley drew his attention. It got his attention. He wanted it bad. You know, sometimes what we think is best for us doesn't always turn out the way we think it will, right?